The Ed Commissioner has laid out a plan. She's here tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
This has not been easy. I don't think the state has done a very good job of laying a foundation for a takeover in the city of Providence. I think this has been put together by hook and by crook. I think the legislation that enabled the commissioner to do all of this was designed for a much smaller type of project. I think the leadership in Rhode Island has been toe in the water at best in terms of what's going on here. Yet this new education commissioner has put the pieces together, at least to have a chance to win here. It seems to me that's been my summary judgment all the way along, each and every step. And she announced yesterday that I should say last week that the takeover plan, if you will, is about to begin on November 1st. So let me remind you about the story. Headlines like this. That was from a hearing where she had to listen carefully and diplomatically fend off interveners who were trying to get their seat at the table, inspired by politics, in my judgment. I'll ask her about that. But here was the coverage of last week's important announcements.
It's not poof, you know, the next day there's a whole new system in place. That's not how this is going to work.
The state of Rhode Island's takeover of Providence Public Schools is officially starting November 1st. The long-term plan set for 5 years with the option to extend.
We are making a commitment of not giving back the school system until the school system is in a very stable place.
Education Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green issued her final order for the takeover on Tuesday. She'll have control of the school district's budget, all its employees, and its programs. Much of the turnaround plan will be formed in the coming months, but Infante-Green told us some of her plans. They include an advisory board made up of parents, a possible reorganization of the schools to be K through 8, and potentially closing schools that are in poor condition, though she didn't say which ones.
We probably will have to close a couple of the school buildings. Some of these buildings really should not have children in them in the present condition that they're in. That's the reality.
Infante-Green has been interviewing potential superintendents for weeks and says she's in negotiations with the final candidate. She would not yet say who the person is, but did say they would be coming from out of state.
All righty, so welcome. Good
Thank
to see
you.
you. Friday.
Yep.
Is it like thunderclouds and lightning, and did the holy angels come to the city of Providence and declare the city, we are now taking over? Will there be any different feel on Friday than there was on Thursday?
No, there will not be. Nobody's coming down. Nothing is going to be different. We want to keep it as stable as possible for everyone involved as we take over. What you will see that will be different is that we're going to lay out some expectations for principals, for everyone involved on what it should look like day to day in terms of how we greet parents, what the expectations are. But other than that, you're not going to see something change overnight.
How we greet parents, what do you mean?
Well, it's been clear to me that parents don't feel welcome in the school system. There's this stay away kind of attitude, and we need to change that.
I mentioned that I thought politics were involved in this little intervener moment that you had. When you originally brought the legislation, the Crowley Act, to the table here, there were 4 parties that could say we don't like it. The mayor, the school committee, the superintendent, and the city council. None of them did, yet these other student/adult-led student/ community groups coalesced under one lawyer, Jennifer Wood of the Center for Justice, and she rattled your cage a little bit and threatened litigation. You took a hearing that you didn't have to take.
Correct.
Why?
Well, because I really believe that I needed to hear the community. I needed to know what was going on. Why did they feel that way? And what I got from that session was that everybody has felt left out, let down, and they're nervous. They're worried that things will move on without them being part of the process. And what I got, this is what it was clear to me, was Hope High School was taken over. A new commissioner came in. Then whatever happened at Hope High School was, it ended. And there was hope. The school was changing. So they're very worried about that. And I will tell you, that's why we moved from a 3-year to a 5-year. So politics would not play a part in the conversations that we have.
Explain that.
So originally we were thinking about the plan, because it's just about the plan, being 3 years. We're really looking at 5 years. We don't want politics to be part of this conversation. It does not matter. The plan is going to be in place.
You said that twice when I said explain that. Like, what are the politics?
Well, there's going to be a mayoral election. There's going to be a governor's election in 3 years, 3.5 years. So that doesn't matter, and it should not be part of this conversation. I feel like education has been so intertwined with politics that it's very difficult to separate them. So we wanted to make sure that that was not part of the conversation, aside from the fact that it's going to take more than 3 years to fix everything that's broken in Providence.
Yeah, it seems to me that would be the dominant, if that's kind of fascinating that you would make a political calculation being somewhat green to the politics. You go from green to yellow to blue to red pretty quickly in this place, don't you? I mean, you have to admit, well, you don't have to admit anything. Would you suggest, even with all the vast experience that you've had in big city schools, this place has its own unique political culture?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Define it.
Well, I think what's different for me, I can only say what's different for me, is that because it's so small, it's very personal. And everyone has an agenda. I've said this before. Every time I meet with someone, there's always an agenda. We start talking about the kids in the schools, and then there is, oh, so-and-so wants to talk to you about a job or this and that. I'm not engaging in those conversations, but it's interesting to me because I start writing it down in my notebook. It's all here, who I meet with, what the agenda is, and my job is, and
it's all there?
It's all here. I can't lose this notebook.
Hey, look at that, there's a book.
My job is to make sure that we keep our eyes on the prize, and it's the students, it's the schools, and that's the only thing I care about.
I just think it's fascinating that a commissioner would come in here and actually make a political calculation. It's not something that I've seen happen with education leadership. Insofar as that I have seen former commissioners shield themselves from the politics and try to dance around the politics. You've made a decision to kind of mitigate the politics by extending 5 years, and you know that's controversial in one sense. That, you know, damn it, you're supposed to be an educator and just worry about how long it's going to take to move these kids. Period. So for you to extend this thing from 3 to 5 years is kind of fascinating in the sense that guys like Jorge Elorza, who plans to run for governor. For him, it's a break because he's a failure, right? I mean, he's a failure in this particular category. So he won't have to answer for it running for governor because he can say, hey, you know what? They're right in the middle of 3 years right now. It's a 5-year plan. The jury's out. Da-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Well, I think that
He's been a meddler, has he not, in terms of this entire situation? Says one thing, does another. I don't believe for a second that those interveners did that on their own, by the way.
I don't know about that. I do know that we will have to answer. 3 years from now, a year from now, we're going to answer. We're going to talk about the things that we're doing, if we're meeting our benchmarks. All those things have to happen. And at the end of the day, I just don't know how you would function here in Providence without thinking about the politics, because it is so intertwined. And what I'm trying to do is really keep it on in structure. It takes more than 3 years. And at the end of the day, I don't care who's in office. It can't be about who's in office. This has been about who's in office for way too long.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the conditions of the buildings, which has been a real serious issue. And then there's always the, you know, how long is she going to stick around question that always comes. Stay with us. You know, speaking of, I mean, the previous package, the commissioner talked about, you know, some of the school buildings really not being well, habitable, really. Here's a headline that talks about the repairs of Providence. Now, Steph put this package together. This is not. Follow this, and I'll explain what this is.
Construction workers on the roof of Barton Gregorian Elementary on Thursday. A roof replacement is one of the unfinished jobs from a $20 million list of school repairs scheduled for this past summer in Providence. 16 of those projects are still not done 6 weeks into the school year, and 8 were completed, according to the latest construction update by the city. Among the unfinished jobs, roof replacements at Barton Gregorian, Hope High School, and Vesey Street Elementary, fire code violations at Martin Luther King Elementary, and a boiler replacement at Carl Loro Elementary.
That's a little disconcerting, especially the fire code violations.
Providence Teachers Union President Mary Beth Calabro thinks this could cause a domino effect of delays. The summer construction list was just a fraction of the total amount of repairs needed in Providence schools.
What's the accountability going to be?
Victor Morente, the press secretary for Mayor Jorge Elorza, says the timeline for the completion of projects can be affected by several factors, including the availability of materials, labor force, and other necessary approvals.
Some of these buildings really should not have children in them in the present condition that they're in.
The lagging repairs come as the state gets ready to take over Providence schools. Education Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green said earlier this week some schools may need to close.
Well, we're looking at the present condition of the buildings, the different conditions of all the buildings, and see which ones does not make sense to keep investing in.
All right, well, the governor had a little moment where she was speaking on a podcast, a national podcast, and she spit out for the first time that, oh yeah, we might have to close some buildings. Of course, that is her typical nonchalance, and she has this kind of concept that when she leaves the state, no one will hear what she has to say. You had to catch up on that one a little bit, because there was no formality of discussion with the state that there might be some closing buildings.
No.
At least in this go-round. We've gone through that before, but not in this go-round. So you had to catch up on that, right? After she said that publicly, you had to catch up on that.
Well, I don't know if I had to catch up on it. We have not made any official decisions, but I've been pretty clear about the fact that some of these buildings are in terrible shape. Terrible.
Well, I think you have been. And this is kind of, we first met when I was, dressing down the entire city, and you in the crossfire about these buildings. And so I'm trying to figure something out here. I know that Mayor Jorge Elorza literally took from you in the early on. You had this kind of you've had the entire way, kind of an ad hoc leadership role here as you were building the takeover plan. You've been bully pulpit leading, but not statutorily authority
Correct.
leading.
Mm-hmm.
Come November 1st, all that's over.
That's right.
Is there a place between Monday night and Friday in terms of the physical plant where when you say a building is, translation, uninhabitable, when you tell me the kids really shouldn't be there, I say it's not habitable?
Yeah.
Are we going to see a different action plan come November 1st for those buildings?
Well, I think what you will see is us moving on what makes sense, right? You heard about roofs. There's some schools that the roofs has been fixed 6 times. Does that make sense at this point? I don't think it makes sense. So we have to start thinking about when we're looking at taxpayer dollars, where does it make sense? Where can we have state-of-the-art buildings? If we keep fixing roofs and HVACs, what are we going to do? Not removing asbestos? I just don't know. It makes sense to me to start looking at this strategically and think about Providence as we move forward.
But here's what I'm trying to figure out. Define for me what, we have buildings that really shouldn't have kids in them means. What does that mean? Because I have to tell you, it's part of what I consider to be the systemic racism in the city of Providence when that kind of thing is said and the population in its majority is Black, Latino, because I know in other communities in the state, if the leadership said, we really shouldn't have kids in these buildings, there would be a triage plan. The
That's
kids
right.
would be in a firehouse. So what up with that?
Well, we're going to be looking for swing space. I don't disagree with you.
Swing space is alternative spacing.
That's right. Until we can figure out what we're going to do with these buildings.
Are there going to be a list of schools pretty close to November 1st where you're going to identify, you know what, can't do it?
Not close to November 1st, because we're going to work with the community, because I have to tell you, Dan, that is contentious no matter where you are. The moment you say you're going to close down a building, even if the building is filled with asbestos, all these things are happening, somebody's grandmother went there, somebody's uncle.
Yeah, but I would think parents react to a health issue. These are health issues.
They are health issues.
I'm
Well,
talking about health. I'm not talking about best space for creative learning. I'm talking about health issues. If health is the issue, how in anybody's right mind in leadership can you let kids walk in there a day more than tomorrow?
Yes, I agree with you, but we will have a plan to move the kids out. We just have to be very smart about it. We can't do it overnight.
But we are going to see some swing moves here
Yes, we are.
in the school year.
Well, no, not in this school year, for next year, so we can decide what we're going to do. So we will have that. I just can't talk about it right now, but we are looking at all of that right now. Like I'm looking at, so right before
Mayor
school.
North Providence says he's got a building that he wants to be able to rent, the Maryville Elementary School. I'm guessing that he's right on the Providence line. Is there no discussion going on with him about that?
We are looking at all possibilities. That's all I can say. We're looking at all possibilities, and everything is on the table right now, Dan. That's the reality of this. We are. I'll give you an example. Right before school started, I visited, we had our staff visited every single school. There was a school that was full of bats. Bats are rodents. Tons of bats. The solution had been to put a net up there. That had been the solution year after year.
There's a 3-point shot for how many bets you get.
I couldn't believe it, with signs that said, oh, Papa Drac is up there, don't walk up here. What are you talking about? There's like feces coming down, and the kids are there. So I think that there's things that we could do immediately, and there are things that are going to take a little longer. So we got the bats removed. We called the health department, had the bats removed the next day. Bats had been there for over 10 years. I mean, so there's things that I share that with you because there's things that we can do immediately, and we shall do, and we will continue to do. But we are going to make changes, and you won't see them immediately, but we have to be really smart about these changes. There's going to be a plan, and we will be able to talk to the community
I
and
know
make
how
it
big
public.
it feels. I'm not trying to create an atmosphere of ridiculousness here. I get, you got 40 buildings, you got all these kids. There's probably only half a dozen that would be beautiful. So you got a lot of work to do. But anytime I hear that kids shouldn't be walking into that building, or my kid would never walk into that building, I say there's an emergency, and you open up an alternative building. And if it pushes the curriculum plan back, their health is more important than their ABCs. Just seems to me, as a parent, that would be the first thing I would think about. Last word on that, then we'll move on to some curriculum stuff.
I am committed to doing what's right for kids, for their health and their instruction, and that's all I can say right now. Once I'm there, we'll assess the situation.
All right. Then there's this thing called learning. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right. So, by the way, last time I checked, you're an educator, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Any chance you're going to get to any education stuff soon, or what?
Oh, that's high on my agenda. That's the first thing that we're going to be looking
No,
at.
but you're an what's the proper acronym? ELL, English Language Learning? I mean, that's your wheelhouse.
And reading.
And reading, the whole thing, right? It's got to be some curve that you already climbed here with all of this system stuff and political stuff and environmental stuff and building stuff and parent stuff and and union stuff. And there will be a time when you just have a pure academic day, right? It hasn't happened yet, has it?
Well, I think we've been doing it statewide. We've been having those conversations, and
So have you had some days when you went home thinking, okay, that's what I'm here for?
yes,
Have you had a week full of that's what I'm here for?
I think so. I think the other stuff comes in and out, but I try to keep myself focused on that.
All right. Well, Dan McGowan just wrote this little piece. Hey, New York's recruiting Education Commissioner Infante-Green, but she's staying put. Did he talk to you for this? He must have, right?
He
Yeah.
talked to my press office.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what up with this?
Well, they did reach out to me. I think they're trying to make it very enticing.
This just came in. We didn't even get it on the screen because we just came in here. Put that up there. Can you, Eric? Can you just come to me? Whatever. When you get a chance. Anyway, keep talking.
Yeah. So they have approached me, and
But she's staying put.
but I'm here. I'm here to do the work. I made
This
a
is what
commitment.
makes everybody nervous, and I try to tell people, don't be so nervous about this stuff. If professionals at this level are doing great work, what's important is to build a system that is inheritable.
That's right. That's right.
So you end up getting caught in this situation. Are you going to be here 5 years? Are you going to be here 5 years? Then you have to answer that question to everybody. Yeah, well, of course.
So I'm here. I'm doing the work. I am
And
going
the
to
union
create a
complains,
system.
they come in, these heroes, and they changes, and then we got to do it all over again. And at a certain level, I get it, because I've been through 100 managements in my industry. You know, the greater fool theory applies, right? Everyone thinks they're the smartest person coming in. But you got to leave something that's buildable,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Are you really sitting at home going, oh my God, I have to make sure I'm committing here for 10 years? Or are you just wanting to build a system that if an opportunity comes by, people will feel good about you leaving? Isn't that really how you have to handle this?
That is exactly how I have to handle this. And it goes back to the parents feeling like they want something in place regardless of who's here. And that's
Right.
what I'm going to build. By the end of next year, you will see a system that's built that it won't matter. Not that I'm going anywhere. I don't want to be misquoted. I will be here, but it won't matter. This system has been too dependent on the people. And it has to be a system that lives beyond the people, whoever the people are. And we don't have that. We're not there yet, but we'll sit down in June.
Have you had a mic drop moment?
Oh, I've had several. several of those
Well,
moments.
mic drop moments are interesting when this stuff isn't moving around. Look, I'm not trying to grab a headline here from you. I just think it's fascinating. Here's what I would say, by the way, to opine for a minute. If we don't have an ed commissioner that is being recruited to other jobs, I think that's a problem. So there you go. There's one way to handle it.
All right, I like that.
No,
I like
seriously. If you're not talent that others would like to have, then you know, maybe you're not the change agent that we're looking for. Anything? I got a minute. Anything new or cool going on?
Well, so we're going to get ready to release our RICAS scores.
Oh,
Yep, tomorrow.
any good?
So this is, well, there's some improvements, but it's the second year, so we expect improvements. We're not where we should be, and we need to do more. And
Across the board,
across the board.
not just the city of Providence.
No, and one of the things that I also want to share is that the PSAT and the SAT data we put out, and we will share again tomorrow with the board, and it's flat. And I met with all the superintendents throughout the state, and they have to build a plan, because my first question is, well, what do we do with this flat? And they said, we don't really do anything. I said, what do you mean? We're going to write a plan. Every district has to improve, period, and make it very transparent.
All right, we shall follow up. Good visit, thanks.
Thank you.
Final word and we come back. Flat, nice. Flat. I know I have 25 seconds. What do I have tomorrow? I'm back on the air. What do we have tomorrow? Oh, yes, we have the new write-in candidate. We're loose here. I have the new write-in candidate for mayor of Fall River. Yes, part of the grand strategy by the existing mayor who took a leave with pay to create mischief. We'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk to you on the radio at 3 till 6 on WPRO. Good night.